welcome back to Business Weekend. Well, it's pretty clear by now that if you put your money into the global tech giants through the COVID pandemic, you'd have done pretty darn well.
One fund manager whose entire global fund was set up to invest in the tech disruptor space is Alex Pollak from Loftus Peak. I spoke with him earlier. Alex Pollak, nice to see you again.
Hello, Ticky.
Now, the Loftus Peak Global Disruption Fund is now one of the top 5 performers over 3 years, and it is disruption what's done it, yeah?
It is disruption that's done it. It is going into the business models that the other companies were scared to go into. Like in the case of, shopping, you don't have to set up a shop. You can set up an online shop, cut out the rent cost, deliver and reinvest the savings in not paying rent to Westfield in cheaper products to customers or home delivery. So that's a disruptive business in Amazon's case. Same with Alibaba. It is disruption what done it, yes.
So, interestingly, say 3 years ago, this was quite something of a move to create a global disruption fund. Now, of course, we think with COVID, well, of course, but you must feel pretty pleased.
Well, COVID didn't change anything that we had. Like, we didn't change the portfolio at all, and we didn't anticipate COVID. We didn't change the portfolio because of COVID. What we say is that COVID found out bad business models that required excessive steps in the supply chain or the delivery chain, so to speak. And so these companies in which we invest had already chopped out, as we say, the high street shops. They'd already chopped out, as it were, having to, you could work and you could visit the doctor online, so to speak. These companies had already chopped out the unnecessary part of moving around.
So COVID accelerated that.
Yeah, and COVID basically, as Satya Nadella, who's the head of Microsoft, said, they got 2 years of digital gains in a matter of 6 weeks. So COVID accelerated everything we were doing and sort of turbocharged our performance too.
So what are the big companies you've got in your portfolio that's giving you the ride?
Well, we own the big cloud players, Amazon and Microsoft, and we are very much kind of involved in all that. We're into the 5G components, Qualcomm. We're also into the tools that enable large-scale disruption to take place through companies like NVIDIA and Xilinx. We're also about the disruption that's taking place with free-to-air television, or television generally, and cable television. And that means that we're doing quite a bit inside of, obviously, Netflix and other companies such as Roku, very strong performers. So some names that people have heard of, a number of unheralded names as well, have been instrumental in the portfolio. We hold Tesla. We have held it all the way since $200. We always we always felt it was a risky company, and so we never held it more than at a 2% position, on the basis that if it went down, we could afford to lose 2%. But on our view of the company, it was worth 5 or 6 times what the $200 was. And so we have enjoyed that rise. It's taken us 5 years to get to that rise, but we've been selling into this, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 US stock price and taking the profits off the table. That's contributed towards return as well.
OK, so yes, Satya Nadella talks about this acceleration of digital, basically the tech side of things. Equally, COVID has put enormous value into these stocks. We've now got the results coming of these stocks. We've just seen Netflix this week. Now they're down, what, 9% on their guidance.
On their forward guide,
On their forward guide. Now, what's that about? And are we going to see a bit of a reset? Are these stocks overvalued now?
Look, the reason that people often think the prices have gone and therefore they're expensive. The reason that the prices have gone up is because companies, for example, like Amazon or like Alibaba, have added new businesses to their suite. When you are Amazon with 1 billion users, so to speak, or Apple with 1.4 billion people connected to your operating system, you can easily add in another business line. In the case of Apple, they add television. In the case of Apple, they add payment systems through Apple Pay. So these companies have grown, the prices have gone up. I'm not at all convinced that they've become more expensive. They've added new business lines to their existing business, which, because of their enormous scale, can kind of be pretty successful companies pretty early on.
Yeah, so they're growth stocks. will they continue to perform in the stellar way they've been performing?
I don't know what will come through in the results next week.
Yeah.
Netflix fell because because what Netflix own commentary was is they enjoyed a pull forward of people coming onto Netflix, and they are not projecting that pull forward will turn into a run rate going forward.
Yes.
But it's worth remembering there are 2 or 3 billion television households in the world that are also connected to broadband,
yes.
and they're currently less than 200 million of those households. So it's not in any way a given that they should peak out at 200 million households.
And as we get through this and there is some return to work, are we going to see perhaps another lull as a result of that, as we're not all working from home?
Yes, the virus obviously seems to have legs, as it were, a second stage, and certainly we see that in Australia. I don't think they ever really got it under control in the US, and so it's taking off again. I mean, the health people that we speak to say well, this is going to be around as a factor for a long time to come.
Right.
And it's possibly going to change the way business is done altogether. I mean, I don't think doctors are going to go back to necessarily having to see patients in the flesh all the time. So telehealth will be a thing. Home delivery, contactless delivery will be a thing.
Yes.
So, the market is all about whether that's all priced in to the nth degree next week.
Yes.
We don't follow it in that way. We look at a more holistic, 3, 4, 5 years proposition.
So when you look at the comments from someone like Hamish Douglas at Magellan, who says, just woe here, we may well see a third wave of COVID. So generally, we've got to be careful market-wise. Presumably that will play in your favour.
Oh, yes. As I said, we haven't changed anything as a result of COVID. COVID found out inefficient business models. It found out people having to visit the doctor rather than being able to just call him up on a Zoom call, so to speak, or her up on a Zoom call. So we're not indifferent to the human tragedy of COVID. That is shocking, and there are no words to express the, unmitigated tragedy that's come out of that. But we have a job to do, which is create return for superannuants, for investors who want to live a proper life. So we want COVID to stop. But the cards we have dealt are COVID cards.
Yes.
They are working for us in an investment sense.
Yes.
If they go away, we still have growth to play. There are a number of different things that these companies are doing, but it would be different.
Yes. Gosh, it's so interesting. Alex Pollak, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ticky.